Welcome everyone. My name is Erin. I am the Engineering Recruitment Officer for UBC Engineering, and I am currently located on the Vancouver campus and would like to recognize that the Vancouver campus is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people, and that you may be joining us from a different territory and would like to recognize those people as well. So thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the session where we will be discussing the co-op student experience in UBC Engineering, including some students sharing their own experiences on what the process is like. Please feel free to use the chat to connect with any questions you have so we can answer them. So welcome everyone. This session is going to be about 30 minutes long or so that we can answer all of your questions. So I have 3 current students with me today. So Anthony, I'll get you to start by introducing yourself.
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. Glad you could join us all today. My name is Anthony. I'm a 4th-year mechanical engineering student at the Vancouver campus of UBC, and I'm also doing a minor in commerce. And so something that I'd like to share about UBC is if you didn't get a chance to do cool club activities back in high school, now it's your chance to do it at UBC while you are here. There are over 350 clubs for different purposes and interests, such as billiards, shooting sports, martial arts, engineering design clubs. These are all amazing clubs that perhaps weren't there in high school, but now it's an awesome opportunity to be able to meet new people, make friends, and most importantly, try out something new. So yeah, that's it about me and my little fun fact about UBC. I'll pass it on.
Perfect. And Farah, I'll get you to introduce yourself as well.
Yeah, thank you, Erin. Hi, everyone. Great to see that many people here today. So I'm Farah, and I'm a 4th-year electrical engineering student at the Vancouver campus. Also minoring in entrepreneurship. And I guess a fun fact about myself is that physics was my least favorite subject in high school, yet that did not stop me from joining UBC Engineering. And I guess a fun fact about UBC is there's a lot of cool opportunities to pursue, for example, a minors or other things that are not related to engineering that kind of help you get a well-rounded education. And I think that's something that I really enjoy about being part of UBC Engineering. That's not always available in other programs in other universities. I guess that's one of the main reasons why I joined UBC Engineering. So yeah, that's like my little fun facts. Yeah,
That's
I'll
perfect.
pass it off to Erin.
Thank you. And Zane, I'll get you to go as well.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So my name is Zane, and I'm also a peer advisor over at the UBC Engineering Co-op office. So a little bit about me. I'm a 4th-year mechanical engineering student, and I'm in the general stream. So it's nothing specific. It's just sort of general mechanical engineering. And if all goes to plan and I pass my exams, I'll be graduating in June of this year. So one fun fact about me is that I'm from Richmond, BC, born and raised there for the last 22 years of my life. In high school, like Farah, physics was also not my favorite subject. Math was more of an interest to me. But one thing I did know for sure was that I really enjoyed building things and the whole design process, and that's why I pursued engineering. So if any of you are in the same boat, I'd just like to let you know there's still some hope, and we hope to see you over here at the engineering department.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That's so great to hear from all of you and to learn a little bit more about you. So welcome to everyone joining us today. We are here to talk about the UBC Engineering Co-op program, which enhances students' education with paid, relevant technical work experience and can help launch your engineering career. So co-op is an optional program at UBC that students can apply into at the start of your 2nd or 3rd year. So you do have some time to think about this. You don't need to make decisions just yet. And students in the co-op program can gain up to 20 months of paid work experience as part of your degree, which could be counted as up to 1 year of work credit towards your engineer in training required hours before you're eligible to pursue your professional engineering designation. Now, some of the top employers from co-op include Intel, SAP, Tech Resources, Ballard Power Systems, Stantec, Canfor, Stem Cell Technology, um, PCL Construction, Shell Canada, Tesla, and more. That's just a handful of some of them, but students in co-op can work in the Lower Mainland, can work throughout Canada, and there's even the possibility for international opportunities as well. So we've had a lot of questions submitted in advance. If you have questions that you would like answered today, you're also welcome to use the chat, and we'll try and get to as many questions as we can. So feel free to use the chat to say hi to everyone. Hello to those of you that have said that already, and use the chat to ask any of your questions as well. So we're going to get started. There's a lot of questions about the application process and what that looks like for co-op. So I am going to add a link to the chat as well that will give you some very specific information. But Farah, could you share a little bit about your experience applying into co-op and what that sort of looked like for you?
For sure. So I applied at the start of the second year at university. So for me, I had started writing my resume actually over the summer because I had done my research when I was in high school, and I was like all set on doing co-op because I wanted to gain the work experience while I was doing school. So then when the time came to apply to co-op, I had already built a resume, which I was able to kind of like, I had enough time to improve and make it look, I guess, better for my application. And then generally you'll be asked to write a few short answer essays as part of your application. And then you would either get in straight away or you'd be asked to complete an interview. So my advice for you is to start early with your application. And with when it comes to your essay questions, try to be genuine, try to be, make them well written, and put in the effort. Basically, if you put in the effort into your resume and into your essays, the chances are you'll probably get in. But also one other thing to keep in mind is there is a GPA cutoff. So basically, based on your first year GPA, you like if you don't meet the cutoff, then you wouldn't make it into the co-op program. But then don't worry, because you could still have a chance in third year. And I know a lot of people who didn't get into co-op the second year, but got in the third year. So I'd say try not to worry about that. And if you do any sort of, you could volunteer, join clubs, or do things in your first year, that would also help strengthen your application, at least from my experience. But yeah, I guess the process is, I feel, pretty straightforward. So yeah, just like start early and watch out for the deadlines so you don't miss them. And then I guess you should be fine.
Perfect. Thank you. And I know that co-op always tends to offer info sessions near the start of the school year as well, so that you can attend those and get all of your questions answered about the application process. So co-op is really there to support you and help you with that whole kind of process. There is another question that came in. So asking if we could give a specific example of an opportunity in co-op. So Anthony, maybe you can share what some of your co-op experiences have been like, what those jobs have looked like, and that maybe will help the students understand what a co-op job would be.
Yeah, for sure. Glad to answer that question. So very good question. So just to speak about myself and my co-op experiences, my first co-op work term was 8 months long out of the 20. And I worked as a project coordinator at a company called Change Healthcare, and they create medical software solutions. So a project coordinator role is not really engineering related. It's more like a management administrative work that I had to do. But that gives you an idea that it doesn't have to be specifically engineering. It could sometimes relate to lab work, management positions, consulting, testing. There's a huge variety. And then after doing 8 months here, I went back to school for 4 months before doing another 4-month co-op at a company called Whitewater West, which is a company that designs and builds water-based amusement slides and rides. So if you've ever been to Universal Studios or Disneyland and ridden on some of the water rides there, Whitewater West has participated in the design and building of those. And it's great to know that some of my work actually went into some of these water slides there. And then finally, for my last 8-month co-op work term, I did it at a company here in Lower Mainland called Verathon. And it's a company that specializes in biomedical devices for surgery and diagnosis. And so I was a test engineer there. And I basically got to design and build things to test these devices with. And so it was a lot more hands-on work. And you can see that this co-op experience was very different from my first one. My first one, I would say I did a lot of like documentation, a lot of speaking with people, hosting meetings, chairing a lot of different discussions. And my second co-op was a lot of analytical work. So I did a lot of design on the computer. And then on my last co-op, I got to do hands-on and I got to use tools to make stuff. So you can see there was a big variety of opportunities, and hopefully that answers some of your question.
Awesome, thank you. There was a question that was sent to me as well about if international students can participate in research or co-op as well, and that is definitely a yes. International students are welcome to be a part of co-op. Some students will have a research position as part of co-op, so I'm not sure if that's what you were asking, but there's definitely the opportunity for that for international students. Someone asked how competitive the co-op program is and what percentage of people who apply get a co-op opportunity. So some of this goes back to what Farah had shared already, that there is a minimum GPA required. That's listed on the link that I shared as well. It's a pretty low GPA, just making sure that you're being successful in your courses. And then when you're applying to co-op to get into the co-op program, that's where they're looking for someone that is professional, that is dedicated, that will kind of represent UBC engineering well, and that will do well in those positions. When you actually are then applying to your co-op jobs, that is kind of the second part. So you're applying into the co-op program, and then you need to apply for those positions. So Anthony just mentioned that he had several positions, and so that's kind of what that piece is. Zane, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what that process of once you're in the co-op program, actually applying to those jobs for a work term looks like for you?
For sure. So once you're actually in the co-op program, you typically take about 4 months. So we call this your job search term to sort of filter out the different jobs and opportunities available to you. So people or students in the co-op program have access to something called the Professional Development Portal. And it's essentially a job portal where companies that have partnership with the UBC co-op program list all their job positions. And so that's sort of the advantage of joining co-op. You have access to all these sort of inside job positions, and then you apply through that. So you take 4 months to sort of brush up on your resume, brush up on your cover letter writing skills. We host a lot of workshops over at the co-op program explaining exactly how to do these things, especially if resume and cover letter writing isn't exactly your forte. We also have appointments that you can book with coordinators to practice your interviewing skills. So basically, you just go through a cycle. You spend several weeks applying to different jobs. For me, I probably sent upwards of 20 to 30 job applications in the span of 4 months to different companies. They came back to me within maybe 2-3 weeks with interviews. We went through the interview process, and some of them went well, some of them didn't, but that's just the nature of the job search. And then directly after your 4 months of job search, you go into your work term. And that's typically how your first term looks like at co-op.
Perfect. Thank you so much for explaining that. There's a few other questions. There are some questions that we've now already answered, so I am going to skip over those questions. Someone asked, is it really hard to keep your average above a 75%? I will say that the first year average is typically around a 72%. So if you can be slightly above average, then not that hard, but that depends because that's around the average. So depends on your study habits. We do have other sessions that will be coming up about kind of exploring the ways to get connected with other students and study and things like that. So definitely keep an eye out for some of those suggestions we have coming up. So there's a few questions. Have any of you had an international co-op that are here today? No? Yeah, that's okay. So I do know there are international co-op jobs available. Obviously, with COVID the last few years, that has made international travel a little bit more difficult, but I do know students from past years that are now graduated that have been on international co-op terms. Students have gone down even into the US and things like that, into California, and worked for some big name companies down there. And the other positions can be all over Canada. There's a lot in Vancouver. If you're coming to UBC Vancouver, then you'll find a lot in this area as well. There's a ton of startup companies and a lot of like biomedical companies in Vancouver. But it depends on what you're doing, because I know a lot of students will go and do field work or will go to a mining site. There's not many mines in Vancouver, but there are lots of mines in Eastern BC and things like that. So really depends on what your interests are. But we've talked a little bit about some of that already, so maybe we'll jump into some of that in a little bit. Let's see what other questions are here. So what does a general day-to-day for co-op look like? So Farah, maybe thinking back to one of your co-op terms, what did your work actually in the job sort of entail?
Yeah, sure. So just before I get started, I ended up doing my whole co-op program virtually because of COVID. So I'd say that day to day could vary a lot from like in person than remotely. So I'd say like one of my co-op terms were in software. So I would be given tasks by my supervisor, and then I do work on them throughout the week. And then my day would look like, okay, there's a morning Zoom meeting, and then a couple of other Zoom meetings in the middle of the day, and then chunks of like work sessions where I'm just like sitting and coding. And then some days I'd be on Zoom for like maybe 6 out of the 8 hour day, 8 hours a day. And then other days I'd just be like working on my own, and then kind of checking in with my supervisor on Teams. And I see a question. Yes, virtually, did I enjoy it? It has its perks for sure. You get to cut out the whole commuting process, as well as my job was based in Ontario, but I actually got to stay in Vancouver throughout the whole thing because of remote work. So there are pros and cons. And then if you work in Ontario time, you get to finish your work at 2 p.m. So that's really nice. But yeah, it's I'd say it's obviously going to be different. Things are going back to in person now. So perhaps maybe Zane or Anthony, if you've had in-person co-ops, you could add in a bit more about that.
Sure, I could talk about one of my jobs. I worked, I believe it was the fall of 2019. So I'm in mechanical engineering. I worked for an oil and liquid natural gas firm called Solaris Management Consultants Incorporated. So what they do is they're consultants in the oil and gas firm. So typically large clients like Shell, Chevron, they come to these firms looking for expansion projects, or basically engineering experience. And that's what these consulting firms typically provide to these large clients. So my day-to-day sort of looked like, it was a lot like Farah's. In the morning, you would report to your supervisor, sort of have an update of like what the day's tasks are, things that need to be completed. So you sort of organize that in the morning. And then throughout the day, you go about completing these tasks. So sometimes that involves talking to engineers in other departments, trying to piece together the different things necessary to complete your tasks. And each of my jobs were 9 to 5 jobs. So I would clock in maybe like 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then end my day at 5 o'clock. And that's the nice thing about having these sorts of office or professional jobs. You don't really have to take work home with you after the 5 o'clock hits. So that's what my experience was like.
Perfect. Thanks so much for sharing. And Anthony, I have a question for you a little bit. So a student was asking if there are co-op opportunities tailored towards each engineering field. They specifically mentioned chemical engineering, but I know that you did some biomedical jobs, as well as some other jobs like your water slide job, where you got to explore different types of engineering even within your own field of engineering. So maybe you can speak to that a little bit, maybe why you chose to pick different jobs like that, or kind of what that looked like for you.
Yeah, totally, for sure. So when I first started my job search for co-op, I knew that there were certain positions and fields that would be that made me interested. And what I thought of it as, if I get the opportunity to, I will try different things so that I know for sure that I can narrow down my interests and potential career path in the future. So that's why I sort of deviated and tried different things out. So at Water West, like I mentioned, I was a mechanical design intern. So this is where I got to do some computer generated design work. So I used a computer to create models of different slide components, for example. So it was a lot of just sitting at a computer desk and making these parts several times a day, and working with engineers to make sure that this is what the project calls for. And then differently at Verathon, for example, I was a test engineer co-op. And so like I mentioned, there was a lot of hands-on work, and I just wanted to see what it was like coming from just doing computer desk work all day to actually having to use my hands a lot and tools. So at Verathon, I can also go about my day-to-day. Basically, I would come into work, look at the scheduled plan. So if there's a test plan that a senior engineer would provide us with, then I would set out to prepare my tools, my apparatuses, the devices that I need to test with. I use a bunch of different equipment or machinery to test them. And then after in the afternoon, if I have some spare time, I can work on my own projects that I have been assigned to by a supervisor, or someone I'm just helping out other engineers. So this is where I got a chance to explore my creativity. So trying to use my own knowledge to come up with a solution that helps with what I'm doing in work and help other engineers at my workplace. So there's a lot of different things that you get to try. And for me, it really cemented what I wanted to do. I know I didn't talk too much about my project coordinator role in my first co-op, but project management was something I found to be very fun for me, because I get to coordinate and speak with a lot of people. And also test engineering was also really fun for me. So these are sort of like the two opportunities I've narrowed down that I want to get settled on and hopefully progress in that field when I graduate.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So there's a few questions coming in. Some of them have been answered already, so I'm going to kind of skip through some of them. And I also just linked some links. So there's a co-op FAQ that has some questions. There's a salaries link, so you can see kind of average salaries in each of the programs. There's also a work term schedule, so you can see, oh, I think I linked the same one twice. I will find the right one for you. The work term schedule is going to show what the kind of plan is depending on which program you go into, of when you'll be on work term versus when you'll be in courses. So let me find that other link for you. But with some more questions coming up, so do big tech companies like Microsoft and Amazon and Apple post the jobs on the co-op portal? They definitely can. Those jobs are going to be very competitive, but we definitely have students that go and work in those big companies for sure as part of co-op. So that's definitely a possibility. The co-op program has specific requirements for kind of when you're starting in the program and things like that. But typically, if you're starting in second year, most students will do up to 20 months of work experience. If you're starting in third year, most students will do up to 16 months of work experience. Again, that will show you in the co-op schedule kind of what that may look like for you depending on which engineering program you go into. And then the co-op work terms can be anywhere from 4 months long to 8 months long to 12 months long, kind of generally increments of 4 months that you would take at different points throughout your degree. So hopefully that kind of answers those questions that just came in. There is a question about, do you have to pay your school tuition fee during your co-op period? So if anyone wants to mention, Zane, I see you nodding, maybe you just want to mention what that looks like. There are co-op fees associated with it. I will mention tuition is based off of your credits that you are taking. There are additional school fees that you pay each term, but maybe Zane, you want to mention a little bit about what that sort of looks like for co-op?
Yeah, sure. So I can't provide an exact dollar figure because I
Yes,
don't
no, yeah.
quite remember. But paying for co-op is like you're paying for a normal course at UBC. So it's generally about the same. Like if you look at the credit breakdown for the amount that you would pay for courses at UBC, it's about the same for co-op. Maybe a little bit more. And yeah, so basically you pay it during your co-op work term, and then you do your work, and then that's about it. So it is a net gain at the end of the day. You're not paying more money than co-op. Your co-op job would be paying you.
If
Yeah,
I may hop in really
yeah.
quickly.
Mhm.
So just on average, I believe the co-op term for 4 months, the tuition is about $800. And in the meantime, I know some students may get a little concerned that $800, that's a lot of money. But yes, while you are paying $800, you have to recognize that UBC actually still registers you as a full-time student during your co-op terms. So you still get all the UBC benefits, for example, like insurance, a bus pass, and other access to facilities at UBC. So in the end, it's all worth it, and you're still making money. So as Zen mentioned, it's still a net gain.
Yes, perfect. Thank you so much. Another question, would co-op extend a 4-year degree into a 5-year degree? Yes, it will. So co-op will extend your degree by a year, which you can see in the schedule that Anthony helped me link as well. So we are kind of running out of time. But again, I saw some questions about what's the average pay. Again, you can check that salary link to see what those are. Just trying to scan through if there's anything that we haven't had a chance to access yet. So someone asked, so what you're paying for is access to the co-op network. So yes, you have access to the co-op job posting board, but you also have your co-op advisor that is there to support you through any questions you have about the job application process. They'll ensure that you're set up, that you are having resume workshops, so your resume is going to be the best it can be. They'll support you in the interview process, making sure that your interview skills are up to par and that you feel confident going into those interviews. So the co-op advisor is there to help you with any kind of hiccups that you may come across or any issues that you have, and make sure that when you're in your work term that things are going well and all those sorts of things. So it's not just to get access to that job board, but co-op program is actually supporting you throughout that process. And again, co-op is totally optional. So you don't have to do it. If you want to find jobs on your own outside of co-op, you are welcome to do that. But to get the co-op designation on your degree, you need to go through the co-op program. If you want to find work on your own in your summer terms or things like that, you can definitely do that. Maybe you have connections already, or maybe you know companies that you really want to work for. That's definitely a possibility to do kind of in your summer terms without extending your degree as well. So hopefully that answers all of the main questions. As we wrap up today, I always like to ask the guest students that I have to give just one piece of advice that you would have wanted to hear yourself when you were back in grade 12 deciding, whether you were going to come to UBC Engineering or not. So really, thank you all so much for coming today and thinking way back to when you were coming into UBC Engineering. What was that one piece of advice that you think would have helped you out? So Anthony, I'll start with you.
Yeah, for sure. And one advice I would have given myself back then is don't be afraid to challenge yourself. And if you really think you can't handle it, don't be afraid to change your mind. You can always say no, or maybe I need to take a break and stop myself, because there's so much competition and so much going on around you during your university degree. Sometimes you just need to slow things down and take a good look around you. Your success should not be measured by how well you do in school, but rather what you get out of it. So this is something I wish I had known back then, because I should have prioritized my learning and tried to get as much experience as possible, rather than trying to focus on just getting good grades.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. And Farah, what would be your piece of advice?
Yeah, so I guess one thing that I wish I would have thought about back then was that sometimes you just need to sit back and relax. Grades aren't everything. And I know there's like a lot of wonderful opportunities once you come into university, and it's a huge university. There's so many clubs, so many things I wanted to do, and then which is great, but then just to make sure that you don't overload yourself and burn yourself out, like realize what the right amount of things to get involved is for you, in terms of like managing your time and schoolwork and everything. And also it's okay, like Anthony said, to take a break. I was, for some reason, I was just in a rush to finish everything in 4 years, but then I realized, like, why am I in a rush? It's okay to extend, to do co-op, take some time off. Like, no one's running after you, so just take your time with it. And more importantly, try not to get caught up in the competitive atmosphere and comparing yourself to others, because I feel like that's something it's very easy for us to fall into that. So just try to like relax and focus on your learning and taking care of yourself as well. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Zane.
Yeah, I'll probably just stick with the running theme of, it's important to put yourself first, put your own mental health first. In like grade 12 first year, I almost burned myself out, just trying to take on a lot onto my plate. So definitely knowing your limits, and it's okay to sort of sit back, take a break, take a breather, and then go back at it right after. And like Farah was saying, at the end of the day, you're only running the race against yourself. You don't really have to prove yourself to anyone. And yeah, so just try your best and take care of yourself.
Perfect. Thank you so much to each of you for joining and sharing your experience in co-op and sharing some great information with our incoming students today. Hopefully all of you in attendance enjoyed hearing more about their experiences, got a little bit more out of that. If you do have any other questions about co-op, I definitely encourage you to check out the website, because there is tons of information on the website. Probably any questions you have are going to be listed on the website. I do want to mention there was one question about engineering physics, and we didn't really touch on that. Engineering physics has co-op built into that program, and that co-op is actually part of the science co-op program. So it's a little bit weird, a little bit different, but there's still co-op available. So I just wanted to mention that quickly. But thank you to everyone for joining. I hope you have a wonderful evening or rest of the day, depending on where you're attending from. Thank you so much to Zane, Anthony, and Farah for joining me and to share more of your experience. I really appreciate your time this evening.